The loan was for $28,000. I found that out before my husband even finished his sentence. And the worst part, the part that still makes my stomach turn when I think about it, is that he sounded proud of himself when he told me. I had just spent 4 hours deep cleaning our house on a brutal July afternoon. The kind of DC summer day where the air feels like a wet towel pressed against your face the moment you step outside. So you stay in and scrub grout lines with a toothbrush just to feel like you're doing something useful. My dachshund, Pretzel, 12 years old, arthritic in both back legs, and completely unbothered by human catastrophe, was asleep under the kitchen table. I had sweat in my hair and pine sol on my hands and a glass of iced tea that had gone warm an hour ago. That's where I was when my phone rang. That's the image I keep coming back to, a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, a clean house, a sleeping dog, and then everything changed. My husband's name is Derek Calloway. We'd been married for 21 years when that call came in. I was 45 years old, a photographer, portrait work mostly, with the occasional commercial contract that paid the real bills. Derek was a project manager at a mid-size construction firm out in Rockville. We lived in a suburb just outside Washington, D.C., the kind of neighborhood where every house has a 2-car garage and an HOA newsletter, and someone always has an opinion about your lawn. We had built a life there, a real one, with all the boring, beautiful details that make a life feel solid. I want to tell you about that life for a moment because I think it matters. I think you need to understand what I thought I had before I can explain what it meant to lose it. We bought the house when our daughter Simone was 3 years old. She's 24 now, living in Austin, working in UX design. The house had good bones and bad wallpaper, and we spent the first 2 years peeling that wallpaper off wall by wall, arguing about paint colors and laughing about it later. Derek used to make Saturday morning pancakes shaped like states, badly, always, and I would guess which state it was supposed to be while Simone shrieked with laughter because they all looked like blobs. We took Pretzel home from a rescue organization when he was 8 weeks old and looked like a wrinkled sock with legs. Simone was 11 then, which made Pretzel 13 now in our timeline, but he just turned 12 that June. I'm telling you, that dog had seen things. 21 years, 2 recessions, 1 cancer scare, mine, 2019, benign, but the 6 weeks of waiting nearly broke us both. 3 cars, countless Thanksgiving dinners at Derek's mother's house in Silver Spring, where I always brought the sweet potato casserole, and she always said it needed more brown sugar. Her name is Roberta Ann Calloway. I want you to remember that name. My marriage wasn't perfect. No marriage is, not after 2 decades. Derek had a tendency to make decisions without fully consulting me, small ones usually. Which streaming service to cancel, whether to re-shingle the roof this year or next. I had learned to pick my battles. I had learned to say, I wish you'd talk to me first, and then let it go. I thought that was just what long marriages looked like. I thought that was maturity. I did not know that Derek had been quietly, methodically practicing for something much larger. The call came at 2:14 in the afternoon. I remember because I glanced at the microwave clock when I heard my phone buzz on the counter. I almost didn't answer. I figured it was a spam call, or maybe my assistant Priya confirming a shoot for Thursday. But it was Derek's name on the screen, and Derek almost never called during the day. He texted, so I picked up. "Hey," I said, "what's up?" He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how my day was going. He just started talking, in that slightly too casual voice he used when he'd already made up his mind about something and was delivering a fait accompli rather than having a conversation. "So, I need to tell you something," he said. "I took out a personal loan, in your name. I used your information, your SSN, your income from last year's tax return. It went through this morning. $28,000. The iced tea glass was still in my hand. I set it down on the counter very carefully, the way you move when you're trying not to break something. "What?" I said. It wasn't even a question, it was just a sound. "Tomorrow we're going to the dealership," he said. "Mom has wanted a new car for years. You know how she's been driving that old Civic? It's got over 180,000 miles on it. The AC doesn't work. She's been complaining about it every time we see her. I found her a really nice pre-owned Lexus SUV. It's perfect for her. $26,000, and the rest covers taxes and fees." The silence that followed was approximately 4 seconds long. I counted them, somehow, even then. "Derek," I said. "I know it seems sudden," he said, "but I've been thinking about this for a while, and I knew if I brought it up you'd find reasons to wait, and she's not getting any younger, and I just wanted to do something nice for her." I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just pressed the red button and put the phone face down on the counter and stood there in my clean kitchen while Pretzel shifted in his sleep under the table, his little legs twitching through whatever dream he was running through. Here is what I knew in those first 4 seconds of silence, before I even fully processed the words. A personal loan taken out in someone else's name, using their social security number and financial information without their knowledge or consent, is not a marital decision made in poor taste. It is not a communication failure. It is not something you work through in couples therapy. It is fraud. It is identity theft. It is a federal crime. And Derek had done it to buy his mother a Lexus. I stood at that counter for what felt like a long time, but was probably closer to 2 minutes. I was running calculations in my head, not about the money, not yet, but about everything else. $28,000 in debt on my credit report. My credit score, which I had spent years building back up after the rough patch we hit in 2009, sitting right around 780. A loan I had not signed for, had not agreed to, had not even been told about until the ink was dry. My name, my SSN, my future. And then a thought surfaced, calm and clear, like something that had been waiting at the bottom of a deep pool for exactly this moment. I picked up my phone, not to call Derek back, not to call my daughter in Austin, not even to call my friend Claudette, who had been my person through every crisis for the past 15 years. I called Roberta. She picked up on the second ring, the way she always did, because Roberta Calloway treated a ringing phone like a personal affront if left unanswered. "Ashley," she said, warm and bright. "What a nice surprise, honey. Derek just called me. I'm so excited. Alexis, can you believe it? He is the most thoughtful." "Roberta," I said, cutting gently through the enthusiasm. My voice was steady. I was actually a little amazed at how steady it was. "I need you to hear something very carefully." A small pause. "Of course. What is it?" And I said the one sentence I had composed in those 15 minutes of silence. Just one, delivered without anger, without drama, in the same tone I might use to tell a client their portrait session was being rescheduled. "The loan he used to buy that car is in my name, and I never signed anything." The silence on her end lasted much longer than 4 seconds. I waited. What happened next would take months to fully unravel, but it started right there, on that July afternoon, with my arthritic dog asleep under the table and my iced tea gone warm and a number, $28,000, sitting in my name like a trap someone had built around me while I was busy cleaning the house. I had been a photographer for over 20 years. I knew something about the moment right before a shutter clicks, that suspended instant where everything is in frame and nothing has moved yet, and the image is about to become permanent. This was one of those moments. I could feel it. The picture was about to be taken, and I was the one holding the camera. Roberta didn't speak for a long time, long enough that I checked my screen to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "Ashley," she finally said, and her voice had changed completely. The warmth was gone. What replaced it wasn't anger. It was something more careful than that, something calculating. I'm sure Derek had your permission. He wouldn't do something like that without— Roberta, I said again, the same quiet tone. I did not sign anything. I did not give my social security number to anyone. I did not authorize any loan. What Derek did is called identity theft. I need you to understand that before tomorrow morning, because what happens next depends entirely on whether that loan gets canceled. Another silence. Then, he was trying to do something nice. I know he was, I said. That doesn't change what it is legally. I hung up again, twice in 20 minutes. I was apparently done with phone calls ending on anyone else's terms. I sat down at the kitchen table. Pretzel opened one eye, looked at me, determined I was not food or a threat, and closed it again. Smart dog. I pulled my laptop toward me and opened a browser window, and for the next 45 minutes, I did not panic. I researched. I found the name of an attorney, a woman named Denise Okafor, who specialized in financial fraud and family law, practiced out of Bethesda, and had a review on Avvo that said simply, "She is the most organized person I have ever met, and the opposing counsel was visibly afraid of her." That was enough for me. I emailed her at 3:47 p.m. with a subject line that read, "Identity theft by spouse, loan taken in my name without consent, need consultation ASAP." She responded at 4:15. We had a call scheduled for 8 the next morning. Derek came home at 6:30. I had made dinner, pasta, because I had the ingredients and I needed something to do with my hands. He walked in, set his keys on the hook by the door, and I could tell from the set of his shoulders that Roberta had called him. He had the look of a man who had been preparing a speech in the car. "Ashley, dinner's ready," I said. "Sit down." He sat. I served. We ate 4 bites in silence before he put his fork down. "My mom called me," he said. "She said you scared her." I told her the truth. "You said identity theft. Ashley, I'm your husband. We're married. It's a marital asset loan." "Derek." I set my own fork down. "A marital asset loan requires both spouses to apply, together, with both signatures. What you did was use my SSN and my income information without my knowledge or consent to take out a personal loan in my name alone. That is not a marital asset loan. That is fraud. I've already spoken to an attorney." The color left his face. "You already?" "I have a call with her at 8 tomorrow morning." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I was going to tell you. I just knew you'd say no, and Mom really needs—" "Stop." I held up one hand. "I don't want to talk about what your mother needs right now. I want you to hear me very clearly. By 9 tomorrow morning, that loan needs to be in the process of being canceled. The lender needs to be contacted. If the Lexus has already been purchased, which I'm assuming it hasn't since you said the dealership appointment was tomorrow, then the purchase cannot happen. If you do those things voluntarily before I get off my call with Denise, then we talk about what comes next. If you don't," I picked my fork back up, "then I file a police report, and we stop talking about what comes next." Derek stared at me across our kitchen table, in our clean house, next to our sleeping dog, and I watched him do the math. I watched him calculate whether I was bluffing. I watched him decide, incorrectly, that I probably was. He did not cancel the loan that night. He slept in the guest room, his choice, not mine, and I heard him on his phone until well past midnight. Talking to Roberta, I assumed. Strategizing. I slept fine. I don't say that to sound tough. I say it because I had already made my decision, and decisions, once made, have always given me a strange peace. Denise Okafor was exactly what her review promised. She was methodical, unhurried, and precise in a way that made you feel like every word she spoke had been weighed on a very accurate scale. I told her everything in about 25 minutes. She asked 4 clarifying questions and took notes I could hear her typing. "Okay," she said when I finished, "here's where you are. The loan was taken in your name using your personal identifying information without your consent. That meets the federal definition of identity theft under 18 U.S.C. Section 1028. It also constitutes wire fraud if any electronic communication was used in the process, which, given that it was a personal loan application processed online, it almost certainly was. The fact that he is your husband does not create a legal exemption. Marital status does not authorize one spouse to use the other's identity without consent. "What are my options?" I asked. "You can file a dispute directly with the lender and request the loan be voided on the basis of fraud. You will need to submit a fraud affidavit and likely a police report. Simultaneously, you can freeze your credit with all 3 bureaus today. I would do that this morning, before we're off this call. You should also document everything. The phone call where he told you, any text messages, any records that show you had no prior knowledge of or participation in the application." "He told me over the phone," I said. "I have the call log. He followed it up with 2 texts last night trying to explain himself." "Save those texts," she said. "Screenshot them, email them to yourself, save them somewhere he doesn't have access to." I had already done that. I told her so. There was a brief pause, and I thought I heard the smallest sound of approval in her voice when she said, "Good, let's talk about the divorce." I hadn't said the word yet, but I hadn't not thought it either. I'd been thinking it since about the 3rd minute of the phone call the day before, sitting in my clean kitchen with pine sol on my hands. 21 years is a long time, but 21 years of building something with someone and then watching them decide that something belonged to them to spend without asking, that tells you something. That tells you who they have always been underneath the Saturday pancakes and the shared cancer scare and the Thanksgiving dinners at Roberta's table. "I want to protect myself first," I said. "The divorce conversation can happen, but I want that loan dealt with before anything else." "Understood. I'll draft a fraud affidavit today. I'll also send you a letter you can forward to the lender. My letterhead tends to accelerate these conversations considerably." She was not wrong about that. The lender, a mid-size personal loan company called Meridian Financial, received Denise's letter by email at 11:15 that morning. By 2 in the afternoon, I had a call from their fraud department. A woman named Patrice walked me through the affidavit process with the kind of brisk efficiency you only get from someone who has handled a lot of these calls and has no illusions about what they usually mean. I submitted the notarized affidavit 3 days later. I had frozen my credit at all 3 bureaus before noon on the day of my call with Denise. Derek came home that second evening to find me at the kitchen table with a folder. Not a laptop, a physical folder, the kind with the little metal tabs inside, because I wanted him to see the paper. "I filed a fraud report with Meridian Financial this morning," I said. "Denise sent them a letter. The loan is under review. They've flagged the application as potentially fraudulent and put a hold on any disbursement." He sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "Ashley, come on. You're making this into something it isn't." "Derek," I looked at him steadily. "You used my social security number. You used my name. You used my income. You did not ask me. You did not tell me until it was done. You thought I would say no, so you did it anyway. You took the choice away from me." I paused. "That's not something I did to you. That's something you did to me." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "What do you want?" "I want the loan voided. I want my credit report corrected. I want you to sign a written acknowledgement, Denise's language, not yours, that you submitted the application without my knowledge or consent. And I want you to understand that if the loan isn't fully voided, I will file a police report, and that report will not stay a civil matter." "And then what?" he said. "We just go on?" "No," I said, "we don't go on, but we handle this first." He signed Denise's acknowledgement 4 days later. Meridian Financial voided the loan within 3 weeks of my affidavit submission, after their internal review confirmed that the application had been submitted from Derek's personal device and IP address, using my information. The inquiry was removed from my credit report. My score dipped 11 points during the dispute window and fully recovered within 60 days. The divorce filing happened in September. Derek did not contest the fraud acknowledgement. Denise had been very deliberate about the language, and he had signed it willingly enough when he understood the alternative. The acknowledgement became part of the divorce record. It shaped the settlement considerably. The house went to me. I had been the primary earner for the last 6 years. The mortgage was in both names, but my income had carried the payments, and Denise was very good at math. Derek got his retirement accounts, his car, and a very clear understanding of what could have happened to him if I had chosen to press the criminal complaint all the way. I chose not to, not for his sake, for mine, because I did not want to spend the next 2 years of my life in a courtroom. I wanted to be done. Roberta called me once about 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized. It was a Tuesday afternoon in February, cold, gray, the kind of DC winter day that makes July feel like a myth. I was editing a portrait session in my office, a cup of actual hot tea on the desk beside me, Pretzel asleep on his orthopedic bed in the corner. "Ashley," she said, "I just want you to know I had nothing to do with it. I didn't know he was going to use your name. I thought it was a joint decision." I thought about that for a moment. I thought about whether it was true. I thought about 21 years of Thanksgiving dinners and sweet potato casseroles and being told they needed more brown sugar. I thought about the warmth in Roberta's voice when she'd answered my call that July afternoon, the genuine, uncomplicated delight of a woman who had just found out she was getting a Lexus. "I believe that you didn't know the details," I said carefully, "but Roberta, you knew Derek well enough to know how he operates, and you never once asked him how he was paying for it." She didn't have an answer for that. We said goodbye politely, and I don't expect we'll speak again. Simone came up from Austin for a week in March. She slept in her old room, which I had not yet repainted, and we ate takeout Thai food on the couch and watched bad reality television, and she did not try to fix anything or explain anything or make it mean something. She just sat with me. On her last night, she hugged me at the door before her lift came and said, "You know what I keep thinking about, Mom?" "What?" "You called Grandma Roberta 15 minutes after he called you. Like, you didn't even cry first. You just knew exactly what to do." "I didn't know exactly what to do," I said. "I just knew what I wasn't going to do." She nodded like that made complete sense, and then her car arrived and she was gone, and I stood in the doorway of my house, and felt the February cold turn into the first tentative warmth of a March evening, and Pretzel pressed his arthritic little body against my leg from behind, and I reached down and scratched his ear. He was 12 years old. He had bad legs and a good heart, and absolutely zero interest in other people's drama. I had always admired that about him. I closed the door. I went back inside. I had a shoot in the morning, a family portrait session, a young couple with a 6-month-old they were trying very hard to keep awake long enough to smile for the camera.